Hey, what's up, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team career mode. This is episode number 88 today for the Bahrain Grand Prix in Season 6. If you guys did miss the opening round of this brand new season where we're driving for Scuderia Ferrari now in My Team career mode, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. But we kicked off our brand new Ferrari career in the best way possible. One race win. Success for Ferrari straight away. I think that was their first race win since maybe like Season 4, I want to say, at the Australian Grand Prix round 2, I think it was at the time, in Season 4, where Leclerc won it after spinning in the wet. So it's been a long old while since Ferrari's been on the top step of the podium, but we brought it for them last time out, down under, and now we have the Bahrain Grand Prix to contend with, and a very different looking landscape of Formula 1. Aston Martin right up there, both Gulf Porsche Williams cars as well featuring in the points, and Mercedes maybe on the back foot after nearly clinching the Constructors' Championship versus us last season. They had a torrid time last time out in Australia. But Bahrain is a very different circuit, purpose-built, and it's all about engine power really in terms of these straights, especially on the game. I found, straight line speed does matter quite a fair bit around Bahrain. Also, the tyre wear is going to play a massive factor in this race, as some teams maybe try and go for the soft to medium strategy later on Sunday, and others may have to go to the hard compound tyre. I guess we'll find out what our team reckons we can do, but it's a solid start to Saturday's action. 1 and 2 in Q1, but of course Q1 is nothing to go off really. The track's going to rubber in, get quicker and quicker, but good to see both of the teammates at AAR Archer Racing, Drugovich and Vettel up there. Vettel making amends for his Q1 knockout in the first round. And he's something to prove, of course. He's the new team leader over at our team, which is our old team now. And after a DNF from an engine failure in that first race, he's going to want to try and kickstart his season today. But with now every team being on maxed out performance on the R&D chart, it means there's just so many teams and drivers specifically vying for that top 10. It's going to be a tough one, and track to track it'll be interesting to see who gets quicker around Bahrain compared to Melbourne. Will there be any differences in performance from some of the teams we saw that were struggling around Albert Park? Let's see if, hopefully we're not one of them. I mean, Ferrari last season were quite consistently quick over most tracks, but at this point of last season, Ferrari was still trying to, wind up for that pace. So let's see if this car has it in the tank. That first flying lap I thought was actually pretty okay, but it actually ended up being pretty poor because we're down to P9 now, as others have set quicker times on their second run. We've gone purple in the first sector, green in the second, but losing a bit of time on that left-hander entry down the hill with a bit of understeer on the front end, but across the line, it is going to be enough to get us up into the top 10 shootout. Mighty close to Max Verstappen in second place, but Lando Norris looking pretty strong in the Audi in first place here in Q2. His teammate this time does make it through along with him. Both Aston Martins featuring, so Hülkenberg and Alonso both in there, and pretty disappointment for Piastri. He nearly got the McLaren into the top 10, and neither of the Repsol Haas cars features, or even the two Gulf Porsche Williams either, so both teams will be a bit disappointed, but maybe that's just the track-to-track difference for those teams. Mercedes actually looking a bit quicker than they were around Melbourne, so even though nothing's going to change race to race with the R&D, you can bet there is going to be a little bit of subtle fluctuation in the pace. But we're now in through to the top 10 shootout. First lap for us was just a banker lap on a scrub set of tyres that I use in Q1, just to try and get a marker down to check my delta time as we go round. But to say we've got a brand spanking new set of soft tyres now on the car for this second run, I actually hardly gained much in the first couple of corners. I really thought with that slow traction zone, I would have gained easily 2/10 before we even got to this next right-hander to end Sector 1, as we do gain a couple of tens here now in the middle sector. This is a bit more like it, but that first sector may just hurt us. We're going to go up by about 6.5 tenths, but we needed more than that. We needed about 8 to 9 tenths just to match our teammate Verstappen, and we end Q3 with a lot of confusion down in P9. Really frustrating qualifying way to end Saturday. I mean, everyone went a lot slower in Q3 in comparison to the first session, as obviously, you know, the night sky came down, track maybe gets a bit colder with track temps plummeting, but even still, just the fact we didn't match Verstappen and we failed to really find much time in Sector 1, I think that was really the kicker. Those first 3 turns, usually you'd expect to gain about 2 tenths alone. So we've got a bit of work to do then in tomorrow's race, but happy days for aarava Archer Racing. It's a 1-2 front row lockout. Sebastian Vettel on pole position, and Alonso will be very happy with his second row in his Aston Martin, checkerboard of Audi and Mercedes behind. So with that, let's go to the grid for tomorrow's race.
We're here again then at a circuit famous for its stunning visuals and thrilling battles for glory. Who will take the spotlight in the Bahrain Grand Prix today? There's no shortage of passing opportunities around the 3.36 miles of the Bahrain International Circuit, with the best, of course, at turn 1, and then another soon after into turn 4. 15 corners here, 6 to the left and 9 to the right, and we could see 1 or 2 flat spots into that tight left-hander of turn 10. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Sebastian Vettel has a clear track ahead of him today as he starts in pole position, and Felipe Drugovich completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, George Russell and Sainz, Leclerc, Norris, the owner driver and Nico Hülkenberg, Oscar Piastri, Schwartzman, Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher, Gasly, Bottas, Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon, Ricciardo, Ocon, Liam Lawson and Sergio Perez completes our grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the rundown into turn 1, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It will keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
So we've got a bit of an interesting one on strategy. So as you can see behind me, most of the grid on soft compound tyre because they have a fresh set of softs to use. But those of us who made it through into the top 10 shootout, a lot of us going on the medium compound to start with, I would assume, well, according to my strategy screen, if they follow that, we'll be going on to hard tyres. But the 2 up front in the aarava Archer Racing cars, Drugovich and Vettel, and I believe also Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, they've opted for soft. So they're going to start on some worn soft tyres and then, well, either go earlier for an undercut pit stop onto hards, or we did see last season some of them at the sharp end trying the soft to medium, even with the worn set of soft tyres. It's a bit of a bold strategy, and if you can make the tyre wear work, it does work out if there aren't any things like safety cars to bunch us back up. That's the big caveat to that. If that happens, then your kind of strategy goes out the window because you've started on, not so great soft tyres at the very beginning, but the strategy will be for them just to try and run away with it basically at the start of the race and hopefully never get caught. For us, we'll be looking to be a bit quicker at the end of the race. Last season, I think if I remember correctly, we did actually try the alternate, mirror strategy. We actually went long on mediums and ended on softs, and that actually worked out really well for us. So I think we could try the same thing again here today, and we're going to have to hope for a bit of pace at the end of the race to try and climb up some more positions, because who knows where we'll be in the first part of this race from P9. But after the last race, we've certainly brought the good feel vibes back to Ferrari. Let's try and continue them as we go to 5 red lights to the Bahrain Grand Prix. It's actually a great initial getaway for us off the line versus Lando Norris towards turn 1. Long run, time to pick your line, and Norris on the inside. Schwartzman going for the dive. We're going to get boxed in, and we're narrowly avoiding some contact with the Audi. Mercedes on the left, the Haas on the right. So that was a bit unfortunate, being right in the middle. Would have maybe I'd like to get to the inside of Norris, but you can say that in hindsight. So we've remained in P9 though, so very much like last episode. It's not been a horrendous getaway, but it's not been the best one ever. We've not gained anything in terms of positions, but up ahead looks like there's some fighting going on. I think Verstappen is getting stuck in and actually might be being overtaken by Carlos Sainz. So Verstappen a bit slow on this opening lap as we're trying to go around the outside of Schwartzman. Now he's on the soft compound tyres, so he's going to want to try and be as aggressive as he can, but he just overcooks it. Maybe a lack of experience fighting for these kind of positions, and he goes very wide indeed and lets Leclerc through, and the Mercedes may now just have a fight on his hands with the Repsol Haas. But we're up one position then into P8. Lando Norris ahead. Verstappen, who has been overtaken by Sainz, now finds himself in a sandwich of the Audis. Russell up to P4. So, you know, remember, Verstappen started P3, so he's gone backwards by 3 positions on the opening lap. Really not ideal. I don't know what's gone on there, and he's looking pretty darn slow. What's going on with Verstappen? Has he got a car issue as Norris is squeezed out into the final corner as Sebastian Vettel leads onto lap 2 with the fast lap of the Grand Prix? Still very much a 1-2 for aarava Archer Racing as we try and finish this move on Norris into turn 1. He's going to get very close to Verstappen's rear end. We're going to try and use that. In fact, he had to back out of it a little bit into the brake zone to try and get the jump on him through the next straight. A lot of battery used to try and defend to the inside before moving to the racing line. But we're up into P7, and there's still some ferocious fighting going on between Leclerc and Schwartzman. And, well, the two McLarens actually not too far behind. Piastri sniffing around. So McLaren definitely looking a little bit quicker around here than he did at Albert Park. So could they be on for some points once again, as they obviously got gifted some with that whole kerfuffle at the end of the Australian Grand Prix. Hulkenberg down in P13. He was in the top 10, but he's been pushed down 3 positions since the race start. A lot of these guys on soft tyres, they haven't actually made the most of it at all, and there's still plenty of us on mediums that are ahead and have the track position as we now move on to lap 3. DRS enabled from this lap onwards, and we're going to close up to Verstappen well within 1 second to hopefully make a move on the next straight, you would say. Actually is behind McLaren. Oh, Piastri! Huge dive bomb, and it's not worked out of turn 1. The two McLarens have made contact. Piastri is out of this Grand Prix as he clouts the rear of another car and shreds his front tyre off. Safety car out early on lap 3. Now, I said a safety car may ruin the strategy of those on softs, but this early one actually will help them by extending that soft tyre stint. But what a weird crash then, as Piastri just overcooks it on the dive bomb, hits the back end of the Repsol Haas, and actually, whilst he does it, takes Gasly wide and makes contact with him. So, a double disaster for McLaren there, unfortunately. And this safety car is kind of, well, it is actually a double-edged sword, really, for the soft tyre runners, because they do get to extend their stint. But now, the likes of Vettel, Drugovich, Alonso, they've lost that advantage they had in terms of the gap to us medium tyre runners. So, is there a chance for one of us to get in the middle of it as we go into turn 1, single file, everyone stuck in behind as we're tapped from the rear end, and Schwartzman spun us round. We're facing backwards, having to reverse on the exit of turn 1. We've been spun round by the Repsol Haas, and our race has gone into tatters. We're down to P14. I think we have some damage as well, potentially, on the front wing. Yes, there is some damage. It's very light, though, actually. We got away with it a bit scot-free. I mean, we've lost the positions, but that damage could have been a lot worse, actually. So just a slight little bit of contact on the front right, on the front wing. So we could probably continue on and just assess what kind of pace we have. Every single left-hander now is going to be a little bit more understeery than I would like, but this is why we got spun around. Schwartzman goes for the kamikaze double overtake and then tries to overtake me or get alongside me, and simply just was never going to have the room there. I wasn't even thinking about where Schwartzman was because he was 2 cars back. He's not in my fight. There's no need to defend him or give him room. There's no inkling that he was going to come through on the inside there. So a very silly mistake from Schwartzman. And is this the first sign of that classic Ferrari luck coming into play for us as we're now down in P14, having to look to re-overtake some cars? Alexander Albon in the Red Bull Ford now in Season 6. They actually did pretty well to get a couple of points around Australia, but we're going to ruin the party for Albon and get up into P13. But after a really successful round one for ourselves individually at least, maybe not so Verstappen, are we seeing for the first time, first hand, that classic Ferrari vibe that we've been seeing in the last couple of seasons coming true? Because this is what happened last season. Where is Verstappen's pace gone? Leclerc squeezes him to the inside so aggressively, and then Bottas comes through for the swoop round the outside for the double overtake. Verstappen just lost 2 places in one corner. We've now got a slightly broken car. We got spun round. This is all sounding very familiar to last season. How many times did Verstappen and Schumacher qualify so high in season 5, and then one of them would have an incident and crash or spin or whatever, and the other one just would have a lack of pace in the race? Is this really the true Ferrari? And this is what the real challenge will be this season, is trying to combat this, and we're trying to do so right now as we overtake our old teammate Tsunoda. But look at that drifting through turns 2. Every left-hander, the car just wants to snap at me, no front end, and then when you try and get a bit too much front end to get the nose turned in, the rear snaps away. And then for Verstappen, I don't even know what's happening for him. I have had no radio call that he's got like a mechanical issue, so it's not something that will maybe hopefully fix itself. He's just so slow. I don't know what it is. Is he got too much tyre wear on the mediums, or it is just some gremlins in this Ferrari car that obviously we were watching on in Season 5, but now in Season 6, we're living it. We're seeing it for our own 2 eyes with our teammate. And for us, well, we've just been dealt with an unfortunate incident in this race, as we now see Verstappen defending the Gulf Porsche Williams, and Magnussen actually makes pretty easy work of Verstappen to get up into P7. Meanwhile, you may have seen the likes of Sebastian Vettel have already pit from the lead of this race. He's gone early on lap 10. He's down to P14. Let's see later on if the undercut or the overcut's going to be the way to go for Vettel versus his teammate Felipe Drugovich. And where is Alonso and Russell going to feature in all of this? Because those 2 other drivers were quite flying high, as we're back to our POV and we're focusing on ourselves catching up to Verstappen. So we had a spin, we've had slight damage on the front wing, and yet we've caught back up to Verstappen. That is how slow he's been going, and also, to be fair, how well we've adapted to the slight bit of understeer every left-hander. It's actually really not that bad, so I'm going to tell my team to not change the front wing at the pit stop. But Verstappen, he's as slow as a snail into the next left-hander. Oh my god. He just locks up and goes straight on. This is Ferrari. Forget last episode and our win. This is Ferrari. My god. Wow, we've got work to do. This is the vibe for the rest of the season. That first race was just a red herring, completely. This is disastrous. I mean, there's still a little bit of hope for us. We're in P5, the pace isn't too bad with this damage, and up the road, we have been called on the radio to say Norris has a car issue. He's going to be slow, and Leclerc is catching him at a rate of knots on lap 13 in the second sector. Down the inside now, up the hill into sector 3. Norris going so slow in the Audi. Did so well at Australia, but his car has failed him this time, and we're going to slip by very easily and actually keep within the confines of Leclerc. You can see every other corner we're having to go opposite lock though, so don't think this has been an easy drive for us. We very much had to wrestle this car through most of these corners to keep it going, but we are doing just that, just like Leclerc in Silverstone in real life last year with that damage. Still had the pace, we've still got the pace, and we're going to power past Leclerc. He gives us a little bit of a squeeze. We're going to jockey for position as we both weave around to try and call each other's bluff. This is a bit personal, of course. This was the closest man to me in the Drivers' Championship last season, so Leclerc has something to prove, but we're going to use all our experience to switch back him on the exit of that left-hander. Leclerc comes back down the inside. Big kamikaze dive again, using the experience just to move out of the way and try and give him the room, even though he did make a pretty audacious dive bomb and was definitely going to crash with us if we didn't move out of the way. So very much determined to stay in this race with very much just the damage we've got so far. I don't want any more. That would be great. But at the moment, down the order, this is the fight for the lead, basically, and Felipe Drugovich has actually jumped Sebastian Vettel in the pits. The overcut has worked here in Bahrain, just like it did in real life, remember? So Drugovich will be the net race leader. Vettel in a net P2, but that might just be changing now as into turn 1, lap 18. Here comes Fernando Alonso. Round the outside, bit of contact made with Vettel, who's going to keep his foot planted to the ground and get back around the outside to get up into P3 once more. But there, Alonso comes back at him with the second bite, the cherry of DRS on the inside. This is a great scrap between two former F1 World Champions. They've got 8 World Championships between them, of course. Alonso with 2, and in this alternate F1 universe of ours, Vettel with 6. And this is a great battle that's just gone on for the entirety of Sector 1 into the heart of Sector 2. But Alonso's come out on top, so the Aston Martin will be in a net P2 once I make my pit stop, because you'll see on the top left we are P1 right now on the road, but that's because we've extended this medium tire stint all the way to lap 19. 10 laps to go. Now's the time to call in to make the pit stop, and we will come in for the soft compounder tire, a used set of softs. But this strategy worked wonders for us to recover last season in the Bahrain Grand Prix, and we'll do the same again to recover in this race after that spin with Schwartzman. So Drugovich takes the lead from Alonso, Vettel, Russell P4. It's going to be Sainz, Liam Lawson up in P6 in the Red Bull Ford, doing amazingly, although Bottas has just overtaken him as I say that. And then behind them is Kevin Magnussen and Hulkenberg in the Gulf Porsche Williams and Aston Martin respectively. They're both got 5-second penalties though, so technically we would finish ahead of them already if it was to finish like this. But we've just strapped on some soft tyres. Everyone's either on mediums or hards, so it's time to give it a big one and see where we can end up. We just stayed ahead of Albon on the pit lane exit. That was quite important for us because it gave us clean air then to chase after these two that have been locked into a battle for a lot this second stint, I think. And maybe that's how they got the penalties, both of them making contact with one another. But 2 purple sectors, so even with the slight damage to the front wing, the overwhelming pace of the soft tyres is coming through. And we're up into P9, and hopefully soon it'll be P8. And then we'll have 3 seconds of clean air to chase after Liam Lawson in the Red Bull Ford. But we make quick work of Magnussen into turn 1. He does give us a little bit of a battle because we do have a little bit of understeer in every slow corner because of that damage. But now we can get our head down and chase after the Red Bull Ford. Lap 23 then. 7 laps to go. We've caught up to P7. Lawson's done so well this far to be this high up in a Red Bull Ford after a dismal Australian Grand Prix for Red Bull. Well, we're going to have no second thoughts about overtaking him because I want the positions ahead of him. I reckon we could get Bottas and Carlos Sainz, and just look at this pace difference of hard tyres versus softs. We just out-traction him up that hill into P7. And now we've got Bottas and Sainz in our sights. Sainz on the hards. Bottas has been held back by him on the medium. So that's helped us out, because otherwise Bottas may have ran away with it for P5. But he's been kept at bay in P6 instead. And will go for the move. He's going to go to the inside, so we have to actually go to the outside and get boxed in slightly. And he actually goes for an overtake on Carlos Sainz, who is sitting back and watching this and waiting for the right time to pounce. Sainz holds us up on the exit, and we're going to have to try and wait now for the next section. Can we just get it through on the inside? No. We're going to be patient about this because I don't want to kind of dive my nose into a place where it doesn't need to be done. And instead, we wait patiently for the right opportunity just to sling it through on the inside of that right-hander into the S section down the hill. And pretty easy actually overtaking the end of it up into P5. The patient game proving the right way to go for that versus Sainz and Bottas, as Esteban Ocon in the other Renault is out this Grand Prix. So that's both Renaults out, Perez and Ocon. But I think that's where our action's going to end for this race then. 6.6 seconds Russell is up the road and pretty competent in this race. And it's going to be Felipe Drugovich driving for aarava Archer Racing, who's going to come through for the race win here in Bahrain. He had a disaster at the end of Australia. He's made up for it. He's bounced back straight away. That's what great drivers do when it really counts. Fernando Alonso, brilliant P2 to match the P2 he got in Melbourne ahead of Sebastian Vettel, who makes it a double podium for my old team but we come home in P5 and continue our streak of finishing every race we actually finish in the top 5. This one was a difficult one, and maybe the first signs of the Ferrari juju that has hampered them for most of this series, for Verstappen especially.
So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
I think it was clear what the main contributing factor out on track was: speed. I know it sounds like an awfully reductive statement, but fast cars win races, and we saw that today with our winner.
And here we are, a team that is no stranger to the podium, taking their place on top once again. A sublime race today, and a stunning win.
I'm still not over this. It's quite weird seeing my team overalls up there in 1 and 3, but neither of the drivers are myself, as Drugovich lifts the trophy for the Bahrain GP. Fantastic win. I mean, just what you need to do to try and gain that confidence back after such a horrendous mistake like he did at Albert Park. But Alonso, that man spraying the champagne on his shoulder. Back-to-back P2s for him today in the Aston Martin car. They're here to stay. They've actually genuinely got a quick car underneath them, and now with Alonso at the team, they've got a driver to match. So they're here to stay. But what a fantastic race for the likes of Red Bull Ford. Double points for them, Lawson and Albon. So, you know, big kudos to them, actually, for managing to do that from both being knocked out in Q1. So from so far down the order, they recovered there. And in the opposite way, Verstappen went from P3 on the grid, way down outside the top 15. Horrendous day in the office for him and for our team collectively, because it was so unexplained. I don't know what went on for him in his car. I got no radio call about any mechanical issue, but he just was so slow all race long. And then for us, we got spun round, had to recover. So very much the first taste of medicine of the Ferrari luck, I guess, in this race. But we've combated it as much as we can, limited the damage. We stay ahead by 1 point to Fernando Alonso in the Drivers' Championship. But look at how much of a difference one race can make. AARava Archer Racing were last place at the end of last episode, and now round 2, 1-3, and they top the Constructors' Championship. So they have returned to the top, and obviously it's still very, very early days, but I think this fight with my former team that I still own is going to run and run and run with some supporting characters of Aston Martin, Audi, Mercedes, and who knows, other teams as well, as there definitely was a bit of a change of pace in terms of pecking order compared to last episode. So I think race to race we're going to see a bit of a difference there with the maxed out cars. But guys, if you have enjoyed this round number 2 of season 6, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.